think we might have just about everybody that, at least a majority of the committee. Is it okay if we begin?
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Can't hear David.
Okay, yep, go. Yeah, go ahead. You got all the information.
We'll go through. We're just
I may
going
have
to go.
to switch a computer line here, but go ahead.
We can't hear you, Ed. You all set, Ed? Kim, can you hear me?
I can.
David?
Yep.
Michelle, go ahead and pull the warrant up on the screen and let me get a hold of it and see if I can get him to go out and come back in.
Do you want the warrant with the annotated warrant?
Yes, please. Okay, so just to give you a little recap that Ed knows this, so we'll wait for him to come in while this is coming up. So the purpose of this workshop, Michelle and I met on Friday and went over concerns that we were given. You guys should have seen the email. Concerns that we were given from one of the members of the Warrant and Finance. So we thought it was important for the Board of Selectmen to see these concerns and go through them before the Warrant and Finance's meeting tonight, so that the Selectmen could decide if they wanted to make any changes. All right, Ed says he's back. You there, Ed?
I'm here.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to just talk away. I can't see everybody at once. I'll try to scroll through. But so the first one that we're looking at is Article 23. 23. Article 23. So it currently reads, to see if the town will authorize the Board of Selectmen to appropriate and expend monies from the undesignated fund balance for the purchase of equipment or to use as they deem advisable to meet unanticipated expenses and emergencies that occurred during the 2021 year. Expenditures in the amount of $500 shall require the advice and recommendation of the Warrant and Finance. Maximum expenditure was $15,000. So this is the one last year, if you recall, we used for the boiler at the fire station. The recommendation from the Warrant and Finance Committee is that we take out the word recommend and replace it with approval. So the last line would read, expenditures in excess of $500 shall require the advice and approval of the Warrant and Finance Committee. So looking for thoughts from the Selectmen.
Last year, I think we added the words, or we added it. What did we do? Last year we changed it so we can only spend up to $500 without going to Warrant and Finance.
Correct.
And that seems to work out okay. Because we still, anything over that, we go to Warrant and Finance and get their opinion on it, get their recommendations.
So you think there's so obviously the difference between the recommendation and approval. You believe that the recommendation from that committee is enough? You shouldn't have to get their approval?
That's how I feel it, yes.
All right, Kim?
I agree.
David?
Can I say something?
Yeah, one sec. Let me just try to go through the board first here.
Okay.
David?
Yeah, I think it's fine just the way it's written.
So can we go, well, go ahead, Virginia.
I was just thinking that the Warrant and Finance ordinance says that we're an advisory committee. I don't know what approval authority we have under that.
Yeah, and Roland just said none, so that's accurate. But it's
It was a rhetorical question.
Right, okay. Tom, do you want to say anything on this one?
Only that the word is confusing. Recommendation is both a verb and a noun. So it is important we know what it means in this situation. A recommendation can be a recommendation like aye or nay. A recommendation can also be interpreted as requiring an affirmative recommendation. And I think it should be an affirmative recommendation. We can make that recommendation or not, depending upon what the town meeting wants to do with the article, or they could take it back on the floor and change it back to recommendation. But that's the problem with the word. It's confusing. It's open-ended.
Okay. All right, anything else from the board on this one? It sounds like it's unanimous to leave it the way it is.
No, I'm happy.
David,
Good.
Kim,
I'm good.
Michelle? All right, Article 26, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen, upon request of the treasurer, to allow the treasurer to waive foreclosure of a tax lien on any specified property for a specific year with reference to the tax lien certificate recorded at the York County Registry of Deeds in circumstances where the Board of Selectmen determine that foreclosure may encumber the town. So I guess I'm going to start by asking Michelle, when is the last time we waived foreclosure on a property?
We haven't.
Okay. So the addition that we're looking for, the recommendation from the Warren and Finance is just one more line goes in there that says, a list of waived foreclosures shall be published in the annual town report. We'll start with David this time.
Well, I've seen we've never foreclosed on one due to that. There wouldn't be a list. This seems to be housekeeping. This is something we pass every year, isn't it? Well, I believe it's fine this way it's written.
Kim?
Have we, has it ever been published before in the town annual report? I mean, why would we?
Well, what Michelle is saying, and that's why I started by having her
Okay.
tell you that answer.
Yeah.
Michelle's been treasurer.
I mean, we've
every
never,
year. We've never even waived one.
okay.
So it's not a big deal either way because the chance of it happening are slim. But that's up to the board. But Michelle was hired in what year for the treasurer position?
2010.
So in 10 years, we've never even waived a foreclosure.
All right. I don't think we need to put it in the town report. I mean, if somebody wanted to find that out, couldn't they just call and?
Well, and the foreclosed properties and the outstanding taxes, and the outstanding taxes with the lien maturity date is in the town report.
Right.
It's just a matter of whether or not the selectmen waived any foreclosure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I don't think we need to change it or add it in.
Ed?
No, I'm happy the way it is, because if we did waive one, it's going to be at a selectmen's meeting, it's going to be public knowledge, and, it's going to be out there. It's nothing we're trying to hide or anything.
All right, let's go back to Tom. Do you have any follow-up, Tom, with that one?
I just think it's public business and it should be in the records of the town that it was done, that's all. And whatever.
If it was something that we had done in the past, yeah, I'd say probably, but in 10 years, we haven't done one, so.
No, the fact is that this article is a recent addition to the warrant within the past 5 years, I believe, and it's justified and it's reasonable, and I understand the purpose behind it, because I've been in that spot of having to deal with that issue.
Mhm.
But I do think it should be a matter of public record that if a lien is placed for whatever reason or not placed in accordance with the law, that should be a matter of public record in the records of the town. And if we never lien one, or if we never, don't lien one, that's fine. Then there's nothing to do. But what it says is, if the selectmen take that action, it should be recorded in the records that action was taken.
Anything else from any member of the Warren and Finance regarding that one?
Yeah, me. Didn't
Virginia?
Ed just say that it would be public record because it'll be voted at a Board of Selectmen's meeting?
Yeah, they wouldn't have the authority to waive a foreclosure unless they did a public vote at a meeting. That's correct.
So it would be out there in public.
Right, because remember that even though the selectmen are the only ones that can waive it, Michelle and I are the ones that the taxes are committed to. I'm committed, as tax collector, they're committed to me. I still have to collect them. Once I turn them over to Michelle, they become her responsibility once they're liened. So
Yeah.
it's, All right, we're good with that one?
Yep.
All right. Moving on to 27, to see if the town will vote to have real estate and personal property taxes first payment come due on October 15th, 2020, second payment April 15th, 2021. Interest shall be charged at 9% on all taxes paid after those dates. and interest on abated taxes to be paid in the town at 5% pursuant to 506A, and to authorize the tax collector to accept the prepayment of taxes before the tax commitment with no interest. All right, and there are they're looking, or Warren and Finance is looking to have inserted is after 2020, so after the due date. So it's going to say interest will be charged at 9% on taxes paid after October 15th. Wait a minute. Or 105 days after the conclusion of the FY 2021 annual town meeting, whichever occurs first. Tom, explain that one to me, because I'm not.
Yeah, I made a mistake on that, and I picked
Okay.
up on it today.
Okay.
I meant to insert the word after, not before, the last occurrence, not the first occurrence. The last date.
So tell me where that would be inserted.
The taxes.
Right where it says the date, October 5th,
Well, the
or
first-
105 days after conclusion of the fiscal year 2021 annual town meeting, whichever occurs last.
the first October 15th date, or the second one? Because the date's in there twice, so I'm not understanding where you're putting it.
Okay.
What line are we on?
27.
That's the article. What line in 27?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, Virginia. Where he's talking about inserting it.
Right, let me know.
On this, after the second one.
Okay.
And
So
I'd also move back to the other ones too, but again, this was my first run through on this. And the point here was, if for one reason or another, given where we are in this process, okay, and for one reason or another, we don't conclude this meeting on the date for which it's scheduled, all right, then you don't have to throw out the warrant and start over again. That was the only reason for doing it. It's just, leave it in if you want, but if for one reason or another we don't conclude on the scheduled date, then
okay. So it's gonna. The question is gonna say interest to be charged at 9% on all taxes paid after October 15th, 2020, or 105 days. That's where it's going.
let me see here.
Doesn't make any sense to me. I'm
All right,
struggling
no,
with it.
it's the second one. And the 105 days should also be inserted. Both those dates should be the dates given or 105 days after.
All right. So if it says to see if the town will vote to have real estate and personal property taxes first payment come due on October 15th, 2020, or 105 days after the conclusion of the annual town meeting. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Or 150 days, yeah, whichever occurs last.
Well, it
And
says
with that-
whatever occurs first.
Beg pardon?
Your recommendation is whatever occurs first.
Yes, and I just got finished telling you that was an error on my part.
Oh, that piece was, okay. I'm gonna let Michelle jump in on this one because I can't I can't understand what the purpose is on it.
So I understand what Tom is saying, that if this town meeting doesn't conclude, meaning we don't get a satisfactory vote that allows the budget to operate, let's say it goes on until October or November, he's saying 105 days after that. I think it's kind of where we are right now in the world. There is legislation out there that does allow the selectmen to extend those due dates through March of 2021, I believe is what the order says. So I don't think this year it really matters much, because the selectmen have the authority under an executive order to extend the date if they need to.
I'm giving the authority underneath the town meeting. Okay.
Question for Michelle.
Says it just says it in the warrant, so people are aware.
Okay, question for Michelle. Would there be any issues if we did plug that in?
Well, so
I don't think-
let's.
Yeah, I don't think so, but
Well, we need
I
to
mean-
count 105 days from town meeting on the 14th to see if taxes pass. So let's just say the budget passes on the 14th, or this article passes on the 14th. So before we answer that, we need to see if they're, what 105 days is. Because remember, in Acton, taxes have been due in October and April forever and ever. And if for some reason that 105 day ends up at like October 8th, you
Oh,
know what
yeah.
I mean? So I need to count it first.
So
Can I insert here? The 105 days is a span of time from which we annually have our town meeting in July to the first tax due date, October 15th. It was just simply counted out that way. And it's approximate, but it's close. That was the notion. Because if this goes on and we don't have a budget on the day which this meeting is scheduled, the selectmen still have to come back and have to put the budget together and have to calculate the taxes. All the tax billing has to be done. So I assume that block of time is necessary to get that work done, or they would like to have that work done.
A quick count, I came up with around October 27th.
That's from the July date or from our normal June date?
July date. From the June date, it would have been sometime in September. But and it's just my opinion, but there's a lot of, we already consolidated three different questions in this article. There's a lot of information there.
I know.
Yeah. If we already have,
Kim,
if we already have the authority to do it by the executive order from the governor, then why bother?
Kim?
I don't know. I was thinking it would be a good idea, and it's not something that we have to keep in forever. I mean, if just for this year, and then we could vote on it again next year to take it out if that's what we wanted to do. I mean, it might be a good idea. I know Michelle did say that there are orders already out there to protect us for this, but I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards putting it in. So,
David?
Is Michelle right there anyways?
Yep.
To me, I'm gonna ask Michelle a question in a second here, but I don't know. I don't wanna rather not make things confusing here. And if we're gonna have this meeting in July, we're assuming that we put this in there, it's because in case we don't, is that what we're talking about here?
yes.
Okay. And if we run by this here and we go by what we have already, is this safe? Do you think this is safe?
Adding the words or leaving the words out?
Leaving the words out, just leaving the article as written.
Yeah, we're certainly covered by the executive order. So
The other thing, sorry, David.
Whoops, sorry about that.
I was just going to say the other thing for the selectmen to keep in mind is that if this budget fails on July 14th, remember, depending on what department shut down, you're going to be calling a special town meeting, or another ballot question anyways, because let's just say that the clerk's office budget doesn't pass, or the fire department, those don't run. There's nothing to fall back on. So if it does, the budget fails, like he's saying, you're going to be going back to the drawing board anyway.
Right.
So I guess I'm a little confused here. So I'm not confused, but I just want to make sure I'm informed here. So say if it fails on July 14th and we have a special town meeting August 14th, then you're saying 105 days from August 14th meeting? That's what, and that would bring us into November, correct, on taxes due? That be correct?
I have to look at the dates, but it's one thing for the budget to fail, but do we really think the voters of Acton are going to vote down Article 27 to make taxes come due? I mean, there's nothing contentious about that. Do you know what I mean? Some of the other articles may fail, if depending on what the voters want, but do we really think there's any chance of Article 27 failing?
Saying here, you're going to start charging interest on October 15th, okay? The point is, if we have a meeting in September, end up concluding the town meeting in September, the selectmen have 1 month to put all the tax bill, and you guys have 1 month to put all the tax bills out.
We're not having
Otherwise, you're in a different ballgame.
We're not, as far as I look at it, if everything failed on the 14th of July, we're gonna work our tails off to get the next, emergency meeting, because obviously we'll need to. We're not going to September. I don't believe there's any way of doing that. I think we're just gonna leave it as written.
And Ed, Ed, what was yours? I'm sorry.
To me, on this one, I really don't care either way. I think we're okay either way on it. So if we leave it the way it is, I think it's fine.
I mean, there aren't many articles that I give you a direct interest and a direct opinion on, but I just feel like this is a wordy article with a lot of information in it already.
Yep.
And if Michelle says that we're covered by the executive order, God forbid if it does fail, there'll be other methods that we can take. But adding more numbers in this article, you're going to get to the point where you're going to want to break it up again. I mean, there's a lot there.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Michelle's recommendation. Leave it the way it is.
Okay. All right. So next article, Michelle. Okay, so to see if the town will, or we're on Article 29, to see if the town will vote to accept any revenues received from MEMA or FEMA claims during the upcoming fiscal year into the Emergency Disaster Reserve Account, said funds to, I'm sorry, my little box pops up so I can't read it. Said funds, I think, are deposited at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen to restore budgets of the various departments for expenses incurred during a declared event. The appropriation shall not exceed the expenditures incurred during the declared event. In our recommendation, Michelle, if you go over the little box. Thank you. Post the account number or reference. So, no, none of the other articles, do all the other articles, they don't have account numbers in them, do they? No.
We
Not
had
currently,
this.
no.
Yeah, we had the same thing last year. We don't use account numbers or.
Right.
Tom, you want to elaborate on this one?
Yes, just that last year the issue did come up, and if you will recall, we inserted a lot of account numbers because there were none in the warrant, and it's impossible to make sense out of the book if you don't have the account numbers. In this case, this appears it does not have an account number with it, so to aid the public in connecting this number with the records, the account number should appear there. The other problem we've had over the years is that we have a number of different names for these funds. Assigning the account numbers allows us to pin them down so we know what we're talking about. Okay, this one is pretty well defined, but still it should have an account number appear there so somebody knows where to look for it.
So can I ask, Tom, so you pointed that out on this article, but I noticed on some of the other ones you didn't. Does this one stand out for a different reason?
No, actually, to the extent that I was able to identify them as I was going through, I have pointed it out.
Okay.
In fact, I think Article 30, it's one of the comments on Article 30. If it didn't make it into the version you have, it's certainly the version I have now of this annotation.
Okay. All right, so let's defer to Michelle first on this because essentially these are, I don't want to say her account numbers, but she manages and oversees all these account numbers from a budgetary purpose. I remember what the auditor told us last year, but I'll let Michelle chime in.
I know last year when we discussed it, it came down to the account numbers are currently tied to the software that we have. As software changes, account numbers change. I mean, we saw that when we changed from NDS to Trio. So those account numbers don't follow it, when we change that software. Certainly, I mean, it's easy enough to put an account number in, but it does add a lot more information.
Now, the school just changed software, Michelle. How did that, are there individual account numbers in their articles?
No.
Did you bring that up with the school, Tom? Was that one of your concerns with the school warrant? I know when you guys voted, it didn't come up.
I have had that concern with the school historically, and this year we decided, as you noticed, to focus on this and kind of get things out of it there. So I haven't even looked at the school articles to see what was in there. I did bring it up on Article 30 also, though. And again, with respect to the software, I understand what Michelle is saying, but let's agree that it's going to be Trio for quite a while because they're the only ones out there anymore.
All right, who hasn't had a first-time turn? Kimberly.
I'm just looking at it, and I don't see how we can put an account number on it. I
Well,
mean, I
you
know we went,
can't. You can. The question is
But-
it's more text than is it really necessary?
right, and
But it can be done. We'll come back to you, Ed.
yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, the only thing we use account numbers for is in the Trio system, and if we did change vendors, then we'd have to change numbers. But I mean, I'd rather see a description rather than a number. Emergency Disaster Relief Fund, we know what that is. If it was account number 03765, now you got to go look up and see what 03765 is. Oh yeah, it's Emergency Disaster Relief Fund. So I like the wording better personally.
That's fine, except historically, when you start going back, as I did a few years ago through the various warrants, we have the same accounts with varying labels on them, and it's very, very difficult to track from one year to the next.
I'll give you that.
Yep. I raised the issue with you, and thankfully Michelle responded to it last year, and we got a lot of them in there.
David?
I'll get either way. I mean, the only problem I see with it is, like I said, if the number changes and it's in the book as that number, then years go back and look at it and the number's changed, it could confuse someone more than anything. So, I mean, might be wrong, but I don't care either way on that one, honestly. But I'm going to take the recommendation of our treasurer because she's the one who has to plug that in, and whether or
I
not.
mean, David, I don't have a recommendation. It doesn't matter to me either way. It's whether the board wants to have all those account numbers listed in there that could possibly change. Probably won't change this year, but could possibly change next year. We don't know.
But
Oh, so you're saying that those numbers could change next year, correct?
If we change softwares, there are some new ones coming out. It's hard to say what we'll do.
Can I ask you this, Michelle, as far as numbers changing? So if we use inland fisheries, like the snowmobile article, for example, so, you know from the day-to-day operations that inland fisheries, we're putting boat registrations into one GL account. We're putting ATVs in another one, sales tax in another one. And they got down to proving it a different way. So we changed the account number so that all inland fisheries would go into that type 2. Mm-hmm. So wouldn't that be an example of why when we changed those account numbers, that was a perfect reason, wasn't it? Because they, right. When they changed how the reporting was. So if this Article 29 wouldn't be a big deal if there's an account number in there, but some of the other ones, depending on motor vehicles, inland fisheries, how we're paying out, if we tie them to account numbers and have to make changes during the year, we're not changing the money that is appropriated or how it's spent, or again, you gotta, you look back at the attorneys telling you less is best. You don't want to exhaust your voters. Is it really necessary?
In this case, the addition of a number isn't going to make any real difference.
No.
So,
but we'll put them. We put them on all the articles, not just this one.
Well, that's different.
On a number of articles already. They have been omitted in some places, though, where they were in last year's warrant. And that'll come up in Article 30.
Yeah, we have department numbers on most of the appropriations.
Are you okay with the department numbers, Tom, instead of account numbers?
Well, that's a start anyway. I guess your reason, whenever we put this together, I get concerned about wording. What's this money for? I raise this issue. We're talking about money here, but it doesn't say what it's for. Okay. I get told in response, well, there's the account books out there that are publicly available and publicly distributed. Okay. So if I pick up a book, I've got a bunch of numbers, and I need to be able to tie that back into this document for there to be any continuity in a sense.
Oh my God.
Okay, what does the board want to do in regards to this article? Well, and remember, it'll have a trickle effect on the warrant, so.
Jim?
I understand what Tom's saying, and it would be nice to be able to match up, but I don't think right now, I think we should just leave it the way it is. But going forward in the future, I do think that, we are going to have to do something, because it would be nice if somebody does look at this and then they have the book and they can match things up. So, no.
David?
I'm gonna agree with him for the simple reason is if we're gonna do it for this one article, and you start looking at all the other stuff like the as we have down below here on Article 30, emergency disaster fund, reserve fund, then we have the conservation committee funds. That means everything would have to have a number on it. If we're gonna do it for one, we'd have to do it for all of them. And I think
Right.
if we were gonna do that, then we would wanna make sure that we had all our ducks in a row and do it right. So I think we just stick with what we've got for this year and maybe put some more emphasis on it next year.
I agree 100%. Yeah, I just made myself a note. I think we should look at it for next year.
I do too.
Yeah, it's not a dead issue. It's a valid point. So, but
And we're assuming that we're all going to be back to an open town meeting next year. Can we plan on when we start working on our 21, 22 of incorporating all the count numbers? And you and I will have to sit down and look at a few counts to make sure that it's smooth. All right, so Article 30. Oops, I just lost everybody.
Same comment.
Same comment. All right, we don't need to read it. God love you. All right, so it's only account numbers?
Well, that's the first comment. There are two comments on there.
Okay, so the first one's account numbers, assuming the board is going to be, they're going to feel the same way because of the account numbers. Let's go down. His second comment was that he believes that we should delete summer maintenance account from the list of carryovers because it's an operations account that should not be carried over. David, we're going to start with you.
Well, actually, when I was road commissioner, I'm the one who had that put on there. So, and there was a reason why I did that, because unfortunately, what happens is especially when we were as underfunded as we were, say if something happened, like, you had 3 weeks of that, you weren't able to go out to work. And then, of course, you got mud season and everything else. It only gives you a short window in the spring. So you have, $5,000 to $10,000 or something like that in that account. I felt it was wrong just to go out and spend it because you had to before you lost it. And when you funded, $5,000 to $10,000 count. And these road funds aren't blowing up to the point where just money gushing. I think it would be a shame for that money to go back into the general fund when they can use that. They can use that money. Obviously, if the money got to the point where I think it's the finance committee and the selectmen's job to if we start seeing blown up numbers coming into May and June, where there's a third of their budget left or half of their budget left, and obviously that's when we would have to come in and make a decision whether or not we want to continue rolling that over or not. But as it is written right now, I think it's a plus for the road commissioners.
All right, Ed.
I think if we were on a calendar year as opposed to a fiscal year, that would make sense. But I mean, having the money not roll over, but where we're on a fiscal year and it ends in at the end of June, 1st of July, there is an odd window there of trying to get work done, and you can run into weather issues and whatnot. So, yeah, I like it the way it is.
Kimberly?
I want to leave it. Yeah.
Anybody else warrant and finance on that one? I don't know why you laugh, Tom, every time. I'm trying to.
Well, I like to laugh. David, you and I had this discussion on the floor of the town meeting 2 years ago or 3 years ago about this. At that point in time, you agreed with me, but Scott had some difficulties, which we don't need to get into.
Yeah, please don't.
He had a lot of leftover money. I point out to Ed that he's much more likely to have problems with weather conditions on an annual year than he would on this year. And finally, as an operating budget, in order to be able to build future budgets, you need this kind of information. You need to know what the expenditure was at the end of the year. Well, and it's the way you make budgets. You make budgets based on history. That's all I need to say.
If I may, originally when I had introduced this to the selectmen, we were talking about $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, because what would end up happening, for an example, was, okay, you come down to the last nitty gritty, okay, and you haven't got all your bills in yet. So what you end up doing is you leave a little bit of money in there just in case all of a sudden you've got a bill for some culverts or something like that. And we do have a supplier that sends us our bills 3 months later, and it was giving us a cushion. And then if nothing came in, we would lose that money. And I do understand what you were talking about with a large amount. And that's where I've always had the saying is, you spend it. You don't spend it all. You shouldn't be asking for more.
Right.
And I think that's the way you should be doing it. But this was under the intent for small amounts of money, a few grand, so not tens of thousands of dollars. That's why I said, when we're watching the budget as we do, and we start noticing these huge numbers, then I think that's when we start having to look at that. But for the meantime, I think that we can, and you can see the end result anyways, Tom. When you see the the amount of money in reserve, you're going to notice that obviously they weren't spending their money, and that's when recommendations can be made that give them less money if they don't spend it. But I mean, if you want to put a cap on this or something, I can understand that. But it was originally set up for a small amounts, a few grand, this and that. Yeah.
So,
If I may, Jen,
yeah, of course.
two things here. There's no dollar amount in this article, right? So whether the dollar amount is minor or major is kind of irrelevant at the end of the year, because any monies, whether it's $5 or $50,000, with this passing will be carried forward. And the second thing is, Jen, and I'm completely relying on you for this. We have a warrant finance meeting at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
6, and how do you want to use this meeting to go into that, or do we?
No, yeah, so we have to actually close one meeting and start another, so I was just getting ready to post on Facebook that it'll be starting momentarily. We're going to try to get through. We only have a couple of more articles because a couple of Tom's questions, like towards the end, are going to be for the actual department. It's not something the selectmen, So I think we can get through this. This is probably the last of the lengthy ones.
Okay, that's fine, man.
I'm just going to post something saying that we're going to, that it'll start shortly.
I appreciate that.
All right. So so is everybody good with this, or does anybody want to? Did anybody want to change it?
Well, I just would like to point out that I think last year we did manage to get these accounts identified by number here. And I don't have a problem with what David's saying. We were talking about $30,000 or $20,000 a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
There was a lot of money there. And that tends to distort budgets, and that's not a good thing.
I'm just looking at last year's.
I think we got it in that article last year, budget, the account numbers. I had it up before, but I don't have it up now.
We had the department numbers, not account numbers, but department numbers. And I think again, I'm guessing it was like 10510, Michelle. So that's just the department number, right?
Yep. District 1.
Okay. All right, direction from the board before we move on to 30?
Do it the way it is.
Leave it. Leave it. Yep.
All right, so now we're down to Article 30.
Before you,
Oh, wait a
I'm
minute.
sorry, Jack, go
Oh,
ahead.
we just did 30.
We're still in 30.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the very last line, right?
Yeah.
So it says all other unexpended fund balances and revenues to lapse in the undesignated fund. He wants to add in except in statutory reserve accounts. I talked to Michelle about this. I mean, it's common knowledge that those won't, but certainly neither one, she doesn't have any current concerns. If you want to add those couple of words, that's fine, absolutely fine, right, Michelle?
Right.
That one actually is a little bit more complicated than that because, no, never mind, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, because the statutory reserve accounts wouldn't roll over anyways.
No, they would.
Right, well, I'm sorry, I'm saying it backwards,
Yeah,
right?
they would without a specific vote. Yeah.
So that's why it wasn't in there, because you didn't think there was a reason to, because it automatically happened.
Right.
But we can do it either way. If it's more clear, then it's just a couple of words.
If Michelle doesn't have an issue with it, then plug it in.
All right, Kim, David, you're okay with plugging it in?
Yes.
All right, so we'll add those words, Tom, to the bottom of that one. All right, down to 32. Or 31, I'm sorry, 31.
All right.
See if the town will vote to accept any and all funds received from the state of Maine and federal government and appropriate any designated revenues received for their designated use. And I think if she puts that over there, he was looking for, insert the following, all restricted funds, add the following, funds received which are not restricted shall be classified and deposited to the undesignated fund. Michelle?
That is how it currently happens anyway. Not sure we need direction for that, but I have no objection either way.
The only point here is in many other cases, it's clarity to the public. I
It's
know
already
how
what?
these things work, and you know how these things work, but the general public does not.
Right.
Right.
What is
Either way, as far as I'm concerned, it's fine. If Michelle thinks it can be changed, then change it. Insert it.
You want all that wording in there? I mean, it's just a lot of text.
I know, we're trying to condense. Funds received, which are not
Insert the
restricted.
following all restricted funds. Where's the all restricted funds going? Oh, just the word restricted? Vote to accept any and all restricted funds?
Insert the following after the terminology, all restricted funds. Add the
Gotcha.
following.
Okay. I don't have a problem.
It's probably more information in there for later years down the road anyway than it is, for this particular year. It's just, it just clarifies.
David?
I don't know. I look at the article, plain and simple. I mean, I think it's fine just the way it is. It's the way it's always been. Correct?
Is that correct, Michelle?
This article's changed a little bit over the years.
Yes.
Pretty much all the same, but
The other two on the board, I mean, myself, I think it's fine the way it is, but if it's not a big deal to change it, then go ahead.
So what are we doing, guys?
Change it.
Okay. Kim, you're good with that?
Yes.
All right. Okay, on to Article 32. To see if the town will vote to appropriate fiscal year 2021 anticipated municipal revenues and use of the funds from the undesignated fund balance to reduce the amount by taxation. Here, I believe he was looking for a list. This article is composed and fraught with difficulty. Somerville Ridges, some of the funds are assigned in other places. So you were looking for these revenues to be listed out, right, Tom?
Not necessarily, although that would be appropriate. Actually, I did insert that. It's not in the copy that you have, I don't think. My problem with this is it says all the remaining funds go to the undesignated fund balance. Well, that's not true because as you go through the warrant, although I haven't actually seen it in here, we reserve certain funds for instance, snowmobile trails, etc. We designate funds for other purposes, and this doesn't permit that. So what I was saying was, except as, what did I say? Snowmobile registration fees, loop funds, FEMA, etc. Revenues are assigned and committed to other places in the warrant, and this doesn't admit that.
So Michelle, is it correct that if they're designated somewhere else, obviously we wouldn't use them twice? This is only the ones that are designated in another article.
Correct.
So is it necessary to add that?
That's not what the article says. That's the problem.
All right, let's start with Ed this time.
That's what you put in.
Well, I guess if that's not what the article says, that does bring up a concern.
Yeah, I mean, typically in the past, we've had a number attached to that. This year, I left the number out for good reason because we're still really not sure what that number is yet.
Oh no, it's like a video. Oh. Yeah, it's like
So is there any harm in adding that text in?
No.
Okay. Kim, David, you guys good with that?
Yes.
What did I give you for text anyway?
All right, Tom, we're leaving that one the way it is. All right, I'm sorry, we're adding the text to that one for 32.
So we're going to add the list of revenues, the list of types of revenues, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
I think that would be most clear because you do, as I said, you some revenues are already committed in other places in the warrant to
Right.
other purposes. Okay, and that's not what this says. This says all the remaining funds or all. I can't remember what the article says. But it works on this too long. I'm screwed up. You understand the problem. Fix it.
I do. Yeah.
Okay, so down to, what are we at, 45? I think.
They ripped out the entire board, so they're just going through the board. Never. Okay, so my mom loves it.
All right, see if the town, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate 18,788 for the dam expenditure. I think under, this is the Mouse and Water Dam Coalition, his note here, Michelle, can you scroll over that? Required record of disbursements and explanation for cost overruns in fiscal year 2020. This one, we're going to ask that you just respectfully, we table until Thursday. Dennis also has some questions on this article. Michelle and I have reached out to the city of Sanford in an effort to get you some more information. Hopefully we'll have it by Thursday's meeting.
That would be fine. I have a request coming to you specifically for some of this information, and it wasn't my intent when I drafted this that we go through every one of these bit by bit, but so you're moving ahead of me.
I mean, the board, you know what I mean, you weren't going to be able to vote on them if the board didn't address them before your meeting.
I do want to take you back to Article 32 though, because I had another comment.
Okay.
Okay, and you don't have it in your copy, but this article, my comment was this article should include an estimated revenue and specify an appropriation of up to 80% of that estimated revenue to be used against taxes. There's no way to put the numbers together in this. It's just saying going to appropriate the revenue.
Yeah, Michelle just explained why we weren't putting a number in it this year.
This is a budget. How do you do a budget without a number?
Do you know what the revenues are gonna be, Tom?
No, but every year we estimate the revenues. That's part
So
of the
I have an estimated revenue.
Okay.
However, we were kind of looking to play out a couple of months of this COVID shutdown to see what it was going to do to give us a better prediction what it was going to do to long-term revenues as far as state revenue sharing and so forth.
Okay, but I guess the flip side of the problem is, let's say Uncle Sam comes down and decides he's going to be very generous and gives every town $1 million, okay, to remediate something. This article says you can appropriate that and spend it.
Well, it says it doesn't say we can spend it. It says we can use it to offset taxes at commitment time.
All right, well, whatever.
Can I interject a question, please?
Sure.
On the screen, on my computer, this says draft dated 5/7. And the one in my hand, the most recent one I have, is dated 5/13. So why aren't we looking at the 5/13 draft?
Well,
Because
Tom had made his narratives on the 5/7 draft, so that's what we're looking at, Tom's narratives.
Oh, all right, so we're not going to spend the whole night looking at 5/7 drafts.
No.
No.
Thank you.
All right, so thoughts from the selectmen. So you've heard the treasurer's input in regards to why she didn't put a revenue number in there. Start with David.
I like to leave it the way it is.
Kim
I think we should leave it the way it is.
and Ed.
Majority rules.
Okay. All right, so Article 45, we're agreeing. Tom, you're okay with that until we get more information?
Yes.
Okay. And I think the last one that Tom had was regarding, so this was Article 48. This was a question about the rec field and what kind of improvements. When you guys start your Warren and Finance Committee meeting tonight, the rec chair will be there and he'll be able to answer that for you. Is that fair?
Yes, it is, Jen.
Thank you.
I just think it should be on the warrant. If we're going to appropriate money for something, we got to be telling people what we're spending money for, not just saying you got so much money to spend. And that's what these articles do.
And we can
The
address
general
that.
concern I have with the warrant, but for another day.
Do any other Warren and Finance members have any concerns with wording of the articles?
No.
Oh,
Tucker, Carol, Mr. Winchell? All right, we're going to assume that's no. So, oh, Mr. Winchell,
No.
did you have something? No? I don't know if he can hear me. David Senior, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. Do you have any concerns on the warrant or any wording that you wanted to talk about with the board?
Nope. Not
Okay,
at all.
very, very good. And Tucker? No, he's shaking his head. Okay. Virginia said no. Rollins said no. So, Carol?
no.
All set. Okay, just the wording, so you guys can still talk about your money thing. All right, so for Joe, I see a couple of you jumped in, but what's going to have to happen is this meeting's going to end. You need to give me about 30 seconds to start your meeting. The different meeting number, every Zoom meeting has a different number. We'll get it going here in about 1 or 2 minutes, and you guys will be all set.
Can you email it to us, Jen?
It's on the front. It's on the town's website homepage.
No, it's not. There's your homepage right there. It says
Yes, it is.
schedule. That's where it was. Huh?
Tom,
Yeah.
I got it.
is it on the homepage?
It was. I'm
It
pulling it
still
back
is.
up.
All right. So it says the town is accepting paving bids. The next one was the Board of Selectmen's workshop at 5:15. The very next one says the Warren and Finance will hold a meeting on Monday, May 18th at 6 o'clock.
My screen is empty.
Try refreshing maybe.
What's that?
I can give you the meeting number if you'd like. You want to jot this down real quick?
Yep. Hang on a sec.
Write it down.
Go ahead.
We're almost ready, huh? Well, you can, I don't know how that works.
8719
8719
685
685
0516.
0516. Thank you.
You're welcome. Give me a minute before anybody tries to log in. Thank you, Dan.